You might think that you could spot a psychopath from a mile away. Cold, calculated, maybe even criminal. But what if I told you that some of the most manipulative, cruel, and dangerous people hide behind a mask of charm, confidence, charisma, and success? And what if I told you that some psychopaths are women? And many don't fit the typical mold that you'd expect. They're not the violent serial killer types or power-hungry, heartless executives. In fact, they might appear completely normal on the surface, having become experts at masking their true nature, mimicking appropriate emotions and behavior, and blending into society seamlessly. I'm Lise Leblanc, therapist, author, and life coach, and I work with men from all around the world, and every so often I hear a story that makes me cringe and think, this sounds like way more than narcissism. It could be psychopathy. So today I'll explain 7 traits and behaviors that are commonly seen in female psychopaths, and at the end of this video I will share one key sign to detect psychopathy, whether it's in a man or woman, that should never be ignored. But before we get started, let me just say that not all emotionally abusive people are psychopaths, and you should never use a few traits or behaviors in isolation to label someone. Okay, so don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. It really helps my channel and I appreciate it. Okay, so here are 7 things that you should know about female psychopathy. First, it starts early and it looks different in women. When most people hear the word psychopath, they immediately picture a man. But female psychopaths do exist, and they often fly under the radar because their manipulation, coercion, exploitation, and abuse is so much more subtle and psychological. Social conditioning also plays a huge role because we expect women to be nurturing, emotionally expressive, and empathetic. So when a woman lacks these traits and instead is heartless and cruel, we try to find other explanations. Maybe they're stressed, maybe it's trauma, maybe it's another disorder, rather than recognizing it for what it is. But it's important to understand that these traits and behaviors are not situational. They're not temporary stress. They're part of a long-standing pattern that starts in childhood and becomes more refined and socially masked over time. And because society is so quick to empathize with women, or simply can't imagine a woman being capable of such calculated cruelty, female psychopaths often get away with devastating levels of abuse and exploitation. A second key trait to watch out for is superficial and strategic charm. Female psychopaths are extremely two-faced, presenting a sweet, charming, pleasant facade in public or when you first meet them or when they want something. But as soon as you get to know them and spend more time with them behind closed doors, you'll start to see a much colder, more calculated, controlling, and cruel side to them. You'll see that they use flattery and charm very strategically to disarm, manipulate, and exploit anyone who crosses their path. So their charm is extremely purposeful and self-serving. They treat people very differently when no one is watching or when they see no purpose or value in them. While male psychopaths also use charm, they are typically more overtly charismatic, often leveraging power, status, or success to attract and gain power over others. Female psychopaths, again, they're more subtle. They use emotional, relational tactics to control. So they're like a covert narcissist in that way. But a key difference is a covert narcissist is mainly driven by the need for admiration and emotional validation. Female psychopaths are all about control and exploitation for personal gain without the emotional neediness or the desire for praise that defines narcissism. Now, I'll talk more about these differences as we go on. The third thing is emotional detachment. So by the time a female psychopath reaches adulthood, they are masters at imitating appropriate emotions, but they don't actually feel them. In fact, they're emotionally shallow, detached, and some might say heartless. So they come across as being shy and reserved oftentimes. And when they are displaying emotion, it's typically just a performance. So they've learned to fake emotions and they've gotten really good at pretending to feel whatever emotion suits the situation. And believe me, they're good actors. So they can switch their emotions on and off. One moment they might seem deeply sympathetic, the next completely indifferent. Where these emotional differences and detachment might be even more noticeable is in how psychopaths process fear. While most people experience fear as a natural response to danger, consequences, or moral conflict, psychopaths do not. And because of this, they might engage in risky, impulsive, or criminal activities without any fear. In childhood, this lack of fear can be seen as an unusual resistance to discipline, loss of privileges, or other punishments. And this can also be mistaken for stubbornness. But this defiance is due to their low fear response, reduced emotional learning, and lack of concern for social approval or the consequences of their actions. Narcissists, on the other hand, do experience a lot of anxiety and fear whenever their status, admiration, control, or their ego is threatened. Psychopaths, however, experience little anxiety or fear even in high stakes or dangerous situations. Number 4 is psychopaths often show a disturbing fascination with cruelty and often take pleasure in physical violence and emotional suffering, whether it's on TV or in real life. But it's important not to look at this in isolation. For example, if your girlfriend enjoys gory horror movies, it doesn't make her a psychopath. When you should be worried is if she shows a consistent, long-standing pattern of taking pleasure in viewing or participating in sadistic acts or manipulating situations in cruel ways to inflict maximum pain onto others, then it is a red flag. Typically, female psychopaths in comparison to male psychopaths are much more covert in their cruelty. They usually mask their sadistic tendencies much better. Number 5 is that female psychopaths are master manipulators, compulsive liars, and experts at gaslighting, often managing to deceive even the most intelligent people. They are constantly using emotional manipulation tactics like guilt-tripping, flattery, gaslighting, psychological intimidation, and emotional coercion to control, dominate, and exploit others. While narcissists also use emotional manipulation tactics, it's for admiration and validation, whereas psychopaths is more for personal gain and for their own twisted pleasure. So unlike narcissists who are manipulating reactively and it's emotionally driven by their insecurities, their shame, their anxieties, female psychopaths are far more calculated and strategic. They lie effortlessly, weaving elaborate stories and sticking to them even when confronted with undeniable facts and evidence. And just to clarify, I'm not talking about an occasional lie to avoid accountability. I'm talking about compulsive lying that's done with ease and is extremely convincing, sometimes even to those who are present for the events that are being distorted. This type of gaslighting is one of the main weapons that a female psychopath uses to confuse, discredit, deny, and twist reality. Number 6 is that female psychopaths weaponize relationships. So they don't form emotional bonds in the way most people do. Instead, they view relationships as strategic tools, and while they might appear to be intensely connected to someone, especially in the early stages of a relationship, it's not genuine emotional bonding. It's more about control, possession, and utility. And once the person is no longer useful, the psychopath can detach quickly and heartlessly. One of the most common ways that a female psychopath weaponizes relationships is through triangulation. So pitting people against each other, spreading rumors, planting lies to stir up confusion, chaos, and conflict. And while narcissists may also use triangulation, a key difference is that narcissists tend to do so to soothe their fragile ego, to seek admiration, superiority. But female psychopaths triangulate not out of insecurity, but to control social dynamics for power, pleasure, or personal gain. Number 7 is that female psychopaths lack remorse, guilt, and empathy. So no matter how much harm they cause, they rarely, if ever, feel any guilt or regret whatsoever. Their apologies, if ever offered, are tactical, aimed to disarm suspicion, keep someone emotionally hooked, and avoid accountability. They just don't understand or care about how other people feel or how their actions affect others. And they may even seem amused, or they might be indifferent after hurting someone. And again, their only regret is if their behavior affects their own outcomes. Okay, so as promised, one major red flag that should never ever be ignored is a pattern of inconsistency between their words and their actions. So if you are repeatedly catching this person in lies, inconsistencies, and contradictory behavior, you're finding that they're constantly twisting reality to manipulate and exploit others and doing it in a cold, calculated way with no real remorse, then you need to wake up. Stop giving them the benefit of the doubt and start running for the hills. I understand how hard it can be to accept this sinister reality, but the longer you stay in this relationship, the more confused and under their control you will become, making it so much harder to break free. Another thing that makes it hard to break free is they will pressure and coerce you, using people and things that you really care about, and use your emotional vulnerabilities as leverage to get you to enable them, or at least to turn a blind eye. So then you just get more and more entangled in their web as time goes on. This emotional blackmail will only stop when you put an end to it, because as long as you are there making yourself useful in some way, shape, or form, she will continue to exploit you, giving you nothing but pain and psychological damage in return, leaving you profoundly confused, anxious, depressed, maybe even leaving you with PTSD. And what makes this whole experience even harder is when others don't believe you, or they suggest that you must have done something to deserve it, blaming you for the abuse. If you find yourself in this situation or are recovering from this type of toxic relationship, I strongly suggest you seek out a therapist who specializes in psychopathy.